Hi, this is Travis from Tenno Farms, and today I'm going to show you how to do an oil change on a 2011 Dodge Challenger SRT8. This is the first year for the 392 Hemi, and it's time for my regular oil change here. So let's get started on that. Here's the engine on the car, my 392. I've got about 130,000, a little over that mileage on it now. It's been mostly a really good car, other than I had the camshaft lifter issue that's common with these Hemis. Had a lifter go bad and take out the camshaft, so I don't know, maybe 5,000–6,000 miles ago, I had to have a new cam and lifters put in. I just wanted to show you that the manufacturer recommends 5W40 full synthetic on it. This was a 2011 only that said 5W40. All the other years after that were 0W40. So normally, while I'd recommend you use what the manufacturer says, I think they probably discovered that 040 was better for these motors, and that's why everyone after that was 040. So I like to use the Mobil 1 040 synthetic, and then I use this filter here. It's a Fram Synthetic XG2. I don't really know if there's that big a difference in the filters, but this one is considered to be a better filter, and it's not really that expensive. I think it might have been 10 bucks. The oil is not too bad as long as you get it in these 5-quart jugs from Walmart. With the filter, it's 7 quarts total on the oil change. So you're going to need to get at least 2 of them unless you got some sitting around. And if, like mine, you've got a catch can on it, got to remember to drain that too, because that's going to pick up your extra oil that blows by. So let's get this thing jacked up and get under here. So on these Challengers, they actually mark the lift point with this groove right here in the ground effect. So this piece of trim has this little cutout in there to tell you where the jack groove is. They're fairly heavy cars, over 4,000 pounds, but I had to get this smaller low profile jack to fit underneath it because they're also pretty low to the ground. As you can see there's not much room. But get on that jack point there and then just start lifting it up, and then we'll put the jack stand underneath it. So once we get the car jacked up, then I go underneath here and put my jack stand under this solid rail here. See, that's nice and solid right there. So that's a good spot to put your jack stands. There's one on each side. You can kind of see it there. It's got like a, I don't know what you'd call that, the kind of shape of an arrow. I don't know if that was actually meant to tell you that that's a good spot for the stand or not, but when you knock on it, that feels like the most solid spot on the frame rail. Okay, now that the car is jacked up, you can see that there's this cover underneath the motor here, and it has these 4 bolts in it. Back there are 2 more. So 4 total. And then the note right here that says to torque them to 35 inch-pounds. So that's your torque spec for your cover bolts here. And then on the corners here, it kind of tucks in. You can see I got a crack in my plastic here. I think that came from a snowdrift that I got hung up on at the end of my driveway one winter. This side's okay here, so you can see how it actually kind of goes together. It just kind of fits in a groove there to hold it together, and then the screws hold it from there. Alright, so I've got the belly tray off here, and I forgot to mention before I took it off that it has these 10mm bolts on it. So that's what size you need, 10mm, which by the way is also my favorite pistol caliber. We'll see how well I can show this down here. This is the oil pan here. You can see it's a front sump design. There's your oil filter. And then there's the drain plug, kind of leaned a little bit toward the driver's side. So when you jack the car up, either make sure it's level or even do the passenger side a little higher than the driver, so that way you make sure everything comes out the oil plug properly. Alright, we got the drain plug on the way out here, It is a 13 millimeter socket on the drain plug. Let's see if I can do this without making a huge mess on myself. Oh, got some on me, but not too bad. There's your drain plug. We got 7 quarts of 0W40 draining out of here right now. So we'll let that go out nice and warm. At least it wasn't hot, didn't burn myself on it. I'm gonna go take the cap off up top now as it's draining out to make sure I get everything out. Here's the new oil filter I'm getting ready to put on, the XG2. And especially since these are kind of oil sensitive engines with the lifter problems, I always make sure I fill the filter up first. Since it's a vertical install, it's not going to dump everywhere. I just kind of get as much oil in there as I can before I install it. And of course you want to oil the O-ring here too before you put it on. Then you just tighten it until it touches, and then go about 3/4 to another turn after it touches. Then you should be good to go. It should be all sealed up. But the filter holds about 1/2 quart or so. So you just kind of keep pouring a little bit in at a time until you've pretty much topped it off. I don't know if it's necessary, but I like to be as safe as I can with the oil in my engine. All right, I got the old filter off here, and you can see it's dripping out. Something to pay close attention to, which didn't happen to me this time, but has happened many times before, is that the O-ring or gasket on the oil filter will actually stay on the car. So you want to check to make sure that it's not on the car and stayed in your filter here before you put the new filter on. So this is what it's supposed to look like. It's not on here, but sometimes they do stick, and if you end up with a double gasket on there, you're going to have a leak. So I'll always check that. After this stops dripping, I'll wipe it off and put the new filter in. Alright, the new filter is up there and tightened in. It's not leaking or anything, so I think it's time to put the drain plug back in and fill this back up. Alright, we're all tightened back up with our 13 millimeter socket here. Just gonna wipe it off and ready to fill it back up and then check for any leaks. So there we go, we're gonna fill it up and check for leaks, start her up. And if you've got a catch can like I do, right there, always remember to take that and drain it out too, because it fills up pretty quickly. This is all the oil blow-by that comes up through the PCV and gets recycled into the intake manifold if you don't have one of these catch cans. I'm sure it doesn't get all of it, but it catches quite a bit. So just dump that out. Alright, I'm getting ready to fill up the oil. It takes 7 quarts total. So just take into account the amount that you already put into the filter. And I wanted to point something out here. So the way these fill into the valve cover, there's this hose here that goes from the valve cover into the intake, and actually the air intake hose. And if you're not careful and you pour your oil too quickly into your valve cover, it will actually back up into this hose and then get down into your air filter line here and then get sucked into your intake manifold. So you want to be sure when you fill this up, you don't just dump it in. You kind of want to pour it in slowly. And that will help keep that from happening, getting into your intake hose there. So when I fill my oil up, I kind of sneak up on it. I know the manual says 7 quarts. So I put in between 6.5, 6 3/4. And then I pull the dipstick and just take a look, see where it is before I start it up. So I don't know if you can see this on the camera or not, because it's not wanting to focus. But it is, let me flip it over here. It's basically in the middle of the safe range. So that's a good place to go ahead and start it up. Let it run for a little bit, check for leaks, and then top it off to be full. So I'm going to put that back in there. Get that turned around the right direction. There we go. So I'm going to put that in there, and I'm now going to start it up and check for leaks, and then I'm going to top it up. All right, we're up and running. Now we're just checking for leaks under here. So there's our oil filter. Nothing dripping around it or leaking. When we come around here, take a look at the drain plug. And I think that looks pretty good too. You can see it better than me from the camera angle here. So I think we're all good there. Everything looks good under here, no leaks. And we've got good oil pressure here in the car. So I think everything's looking good. We can go ahead and shut it off, set it back down, and then top it up to full. All right, I sat it down and pulled out the dipstick. I was about halfway up the safe range. So I just put a little bit more in there to top it up right toward the top of safe. And it was right at exactly 7 quarts. So it's perfectly right. So everything is ready to go, and the oil is all changed on this car. We're ready to roll again. Thanks for watching.